People say that their partner has changed after marriage or however many years that they're examining this.
Our society does not talk about love, marriage, relationships.
I'm looking at symptoms, right, in how they behave and how they operate.
It's very difficult to get intimate for the species to grow. Now you understand the purpose is for the species to grow.
The dating world today, it takes you many months, years to figure out where the person really is and who they are. We don't even know where they're from.
In my marriage, I was attracted to my husband because of his sincerity.
Every relationship problem that you have with your partner, your children, your team members, your parents, starts in the same place. It starts with you.
I am Dr. Sapna Sharma. I've spent 20 years as a relationship and parenting counselor, sitting across from people who are hurting, confused, and looking for answers, but all in the wrong places.
And I'm Raju Panjwani, 2 marriages, loss, rebuilding, and I've spent years coaching senior leaders on what it actually takes to show up consciously at work and at home.
So here together we are going to have the conversations most people avoid. There's no prescription here, just conversations.
About love, about marriage, heartbreaks, and what it really takes to grow. We hope this strikes a chord with you, and we hope you join us. This is the Relationships and Marriage Podcast.
Hello and welcome once again to Relationships and Marriage Podcast. I am Dr. Sapna Sharma, and with us, of course, is Raju Panjwani. We love to have these conversations with each other. We love to respond to your messages and have more conversations with you. And today we have come up with another very interesting topic. This basically has come up from one of the questions that has been put to us by one of our viewers. And so this title goes as, did you marry a real person or did you marry a fantasy? So let's see what we have in store today.
Yeah, so what do you have in store, Satna? Because, when people say that their partner has changed after marriage or however many years that they're examining this, did the partner really change or a fantasy of theirs that just simply, faded away? I mean, why is it even a fantasy?
So we all have some ideas about, love and marriage, which has come all the way since we were growing up. Either we saw something in our parents, or either we saw in the movies, or because we read somewhere. We have all developed our own ideas. That's why I would say that it's a fantasy.
Sure.
And as it goes, that our society does not talk about love, marriage, relationships, any of these important things when the children are growing up. So it's almost a hush-hush topic. So whatever is there in their mind is practically a fantasy. But he has changed after marriage or she has changed after marriage. Where this comes from is we actually do not know them before marriage well enough, because when we like someone, when we feel attracted, it's because of a few things about them. It's never about that whole person. It's just a few things. Some people just get strongly attracted towards the other just by the perfume that they're using. They have no idea who this is as a person, but the perfumes make them feel that, this is the person for me. So it can be anything, I like the way they talk, I like their smartness, I like their confidence, I just like the way they look, or it can be anything. So while this is happening, I'm so strongly attracted that I practically do not want to see the other side of them, which is like the real person behind the smile and height and everything else. And even if I see that, I just ignore it. I choose to ignore it. In all the relationships, whenever I'm doing couple counseling and they are describing some annoying traits about their partners, and I ask them that, did you notice any of this before marriage? And invariably they say is either, I thought it was very cute at that time. Okay, number one. I think that will continue lifelong. Secondly, they would say that, I thought that he will overcome it or she will change. So practically we are getting married by looking at those things which we don't like, and in our own imagination believing that this is all going to change, and it's going to be a happily ever after for us.
That's right.
So those are the fantasies that we are carrying. So when we actually do not know the person, to then say that he or she has changed after marriage.
So that's regardless of whether it's arranged marriage in India or love, it doesn't matter. Sounds like that's what you're saying.
It doesn't matter. In fact, I'll tell you, when you like a few things about a person, okay, you agree to go ahead with the relationship or the marriage if it's an arranged marriage. But we all have that fantasy frame. This is how my husband should be. This is how my wife should be. Right. So then rest of the life, we try to take them and fit them into that frame. Right? And they don't fit. Of course, they don't fit, because This is a real person. And when they don't feel fit, we start feeling that, they have changed.
So imagination runs wild in all of our lives, and then this in particular is, particularly making a life decision to live with somebody. You're imagining what it would be, and yeah, that dream would fade because it's never going to be the same, and everybody's changing all the time.
So in my counseling, people are often using these terms and, saying these things about their partner. Your coaching is more about the executive coaching. It's more about their careers. Yeah.
I may be coaching these executives, but ultimately it comes down to that I'm a life
So do
coach.
they talk about these things? Do they talk that their partner is not the one whom they thought that they were marrying?
Well, when we're starting out, I'm looking at symptoms, right, and how they behave and how they operate, whether it's typically, as you say, starting with the careers and what they're doing in their work, how they manage their teams, etc. But when I'm examining their behavior and their pattern of thinking and acting, because it's the pattern that I'm interrupting, because that's what's holding them back from whatever the next stage of their career or the rung they will climb is. And yes, that's the lens with which we start. But it turns out in many cases, and this has happened over the last 5 years, even though that's or identified with their careers, particularly men, and I think women too, as I was saying in a previous episode, particularly if they're successful, they are so wanting to hold on to that. So when it comes to actually saying out loud about the relationship with their spouse, it takes a long time for somebody to be comfortable to say that. It's not just a silly argument that they had in the morning that they're bringing to the table that day. It's just literally deeply buried. So I'm not necessarily probing into every single part of their life, but it does come up within a fairly short period of time because it's like this is 6 months to a year kind of a one-on-one coaching. So there it does come out. Of course, it touches on not just that I had a fight with your wife or your spouse. It's more than I thought I was marrying this kind of person, as you were saying it, but it turns out to be something else. And then you're interrupting a pattern of thinking with them rather than behavior, because thinking patterns interrupt then will show up in the behavior as well.
So how
So yeah, it
frequent
is.
would say that this is you have experienced this particular aspect of it? They
Yeah.
feel that the partner has changed or they're not the same. Is it like very frequent or
No, of course. As I said, this is not a thing that normally is top of mind because their promotion is top of mind or their pay raise is top of mind or a troubling colleague may be the top of mind. How to get ahead may be top of mind. How to be visible in the company is top of mind. But all of these, for that individual, that pattern of behavior, it is everywhere. So I do go deep into, tell me about your interaction with your children. Tell me what dinner was like last night with your wife and children. And it comes out. Then you realize, ooh, that's because me, Raju, I go there. If I see that there is a need to go there, not in every case do I talk about their spouse.
do you see many people talking in these terms? It may be men or women that their partner has changed or not the same person they had married.
It comes up. I mean, particularly if you're Indian, you had an arranged marriage, I think it is endemic, but then they say that's how it is. And I go, wait, I'm not suggesting you do anything crazy, but are you seeking some help? Because I'm not the counselor in this case. But that has come up. I would say in the last maybe 3 years, I've had three cases where they needed to go get some help because otherwise it was destroying this person's, day to day at work because they were just bringing, either they were running away from the problem at home because they married the wrong person, they think, and other kids involved. Hey, I was there too, by the way, 35 years ago. It was like, it's not that I married the wrong person. It was just one of the things that in an arranged marriage didn't quite go in the way I thought it would go. And so it's real. It is real because ultimately you do, I had situations at work in my case, like I didn't even realize we're coming from this
So hold that
deep.
thought. I'm going to be coming back to that one. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Before that, I was just wanting to mention that why does this happen? Because everyone believes that, we see around that marriages are breaking and relationships don't work. And yet people keep on falling into the same circle of choosing the so-called wrong partner, right? Which they'll realize later on. It's very important to understand that why does this happen? So one is I would say that nature intended every species to grow in the
Yes.
broadest sense, right? And that is
Mhm.
why there are male and female in every species. For the species to grow, the process which is required is pretty intimate. The two
Mhm.
genders need to be getting very intimate. So unless you really like each other, really get attracted to the other person or anyone else, it's very difficult to get intimate for the species to grow. Now you understand the purpose is for the species to grow, right? But we have learned to
When you
control
say
that.
grow, you mean procreate, Sapna?
Procreation. Yeah.
Procreation.
Procreation. Procreation is the intention of nature for
That's
creating
right.
two separate genders. Nature has created this process of attraction by means
Mhm.
of hormones and everything else, right? So, because of that, we do get attracted to certain things in other person. Because I personally believe that if we become totally logical, I don't think anyone would like to marry or even have children. That will become so less than otherwise. But it is at that particular time we do feel attracted towards the opposite gender and to certain kind of people. When that happens, somehow our logical brain stops working. Almost everyone has this experience of some friends or someone telling them he's not the right guy, she's not the right person,
That's
stay
awesome,
away.
yeah.
Where are you getting it? But we don't want to listen to it, right? We have been told by someone or something, even our own intuitions have told us, but we want to believe that this all bad thing is going to disappear and or this person is going to totally change
In my
and
life.
something miraculous is going to happen for me. So I don't totally blame the people, I also blame the nature for it, that we are not able to use all our logical mind at that particular time. That's a very big fact. Having said that, I say that now the youngsters get into too many relationships. They are okay with it. No, they're getting into many relationships. If
Many
one doesn't
relationships.
work out, they get into another. If
Ah,
that doesn't
okay.
work out, they get into other one. Because when we were growing up, it was considered to be a taboo. Like if you are with one person, that's the one person you're supposed to be for the rest of your
Exactly.
life. Right? But now they have choices and they're experiencing, right? So I, like we said, that everything starts with me. So when I am with someone, that's when I start to know myself better.
Hmm.
In
Hmm.
isolation, I'm the best one. But when
Yep.
I'm with someone, I know that what irritates me, what takes my patience down, how do I behave in certain situations, right? And so when I learned that, if I use that as a learning before choosing the next partner, by the time it comes to marriage, we would all be much more in a safer zone. So it's
I mean, that's the
possible.
goal anyway. That's a possibility, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a possibility if we look at it that way, because anyway, you are getting into different relationships and you believe that, okay, that's your right. And if one relationship doesn't work out, yes, it's your right to have another relationship. But why not use it as a, learning method?
Hmm.
Okay, these are the things which I have to make it very clear right in the beginning. Or
Hmm.
these are the things which I know that, are my weaknesses, so I have to be careful about this.
How does that assure anything? Because just because I think, I put my boundaries, I say this is my expectations, that's a start. Because, to that point in your experience, do you see that that cannot be all and all? That's just maybe the beginning of the
No,
relationship.
definitely no. And I'm saying that, that is because we are going through multiple relationships. We are learning more about ourselves in every relationship.
That's correct. I hope,
Right?
I hope you are. When you pay attention, that's only when you learn. Although if you
Yeah.
don't pay
So
attention,
we go through something in the every relationship, but unfortunately, majority believes in blaming the other person when there is a breakup,
yes,
divorce.
exactly.
Right? So you're not doing your learning. There is every possibility of you committing the same mistake the next thing time also.
That's right.
You're going to find
That's right.
someone else, and again you're going to believe that I always get the wrong people.
So, at what stage in your experience do you see that the relationship transitions? Like, oh, I had this, so now you married, you got together, but now reality hits. Like, I had this imagined idea of where this is going to go, and now it's been whatever. So, it's like my question is: there such a not a typical thing, but what's generally the case that at what point does it start to feel I'm in reality because I have to face myself, and now I'm living with this
Very
person for a
interesting
few
that
years?
this is happening on honeymoon itself. Because
Me
now
too.
you because now you don't want to give that benefit of doubt to that person. Suddenly everything has changed in that equation. And suddenly you start seeing that, the snoring which you were fighting very cute, and you're not able to sleep every night, and that's bullshit. I don't want it. He's leaving the wet towel on the floor or somewhere, that was something which I thought was so adorable. Now I don't find it adorable at all because I have to pick up after it. Right?
But wait,
So
why did you pick the honeymoon? You knew about my honeymoon, or you just happened to know that people talk to you?
I would definitely like to know what happened there. But
No,
this
no,
is
no, no.
how
We're not
early.
doing
You
that.
said at what stage it happens. This is how early. The moment the dynamics change, the relationships becomes more of a permanence. And we know that, okay, this association, this closeness is going to be every day, every minute now. Now it's
Yes.
very difficult for me to tolerate that he doesn't put up the toilet seat when he's using it. Now it really irritates me. As long as I didn't have to use your toilet, I was meeting you and I was going back home, I was fine. But now I have to, So all the small things, they start becoming evident then and there. So depending also upon your patience, whether you'll act on it or not, but it starts showing off almost immediately. I would ask that question to you. In your case, in your first marriage, when did it start? When did your fantasy start breaking?
I think the honeymoon. That's why I was like, what did you know about my honeymoon? I mean, a little different in the sense that it was an arranged marriage, but more than that, I don't blame the arranged marriage. It was just like, I had this fantasy because we used to write to each other during that engagement period, let's call it that. And, we had agreed, families had agreed that this is going to happen. So there were about maybe right before the marriage and then after the marriage, big difference. But before we got married, there were like 3 or 4 months. We were writing letters to each other every week. And so the fantasy to the, really, as you said, the imagined of what's going to be is going to be, oh, so beautiful, so wonderful. Maybe it was a perfume.
Yeah.
But, or it was maybe a cute picture. It could be anything, right? So as you said, that felt like it's gonna be good. And then I'm gonna go to the US and we're gonna be married and come back in 3 years. That was the pact. Well, anyway, without going into too much detail, so 10 days later we had the honeymoon in India, and it's like, oh my God, what did I do? What did Dad do? I was blaming Dad for that. Yeah, that's going to happen. But it continued on because then it became a challenge to say, okay, how do I overcome? I'm not trying to change the person. What am I supposed to do? And I was constantly in this tussle for many, many years. And so I had to go through counseling and therapy because I think that's what helped me eventually to see some mirror for me. Like, what was I responsible for in the marriage? Because equally I was as well. She had an imagined identity of this relationship and the marriage, and it was not real for her either. So it works both ways.
Yeah.
So when the fantasy breaks and reality appears, and as we were saying, what determines whether a couple then grows closer or resentful or apart? How does that work?
Maturity of both the partners.
What does that mean, maturity?
Meaning is that if you can see the good thing in the person, also understand that everyone has some things that you don't like or you won't like. That we are different. We are different people brought up in different environment with different personalities altogether. So we're going to be different. There are so many things that we won't like about each other, and we can talk about them and we can find a middle path to it. And yes, many couples do that. After that initial fantasy breaks, they can still look at their partner, they can still look at what they liked in the initial phase. If they had looked at something very concrete. In my marriage, I was attracted to my husband because of his sincerity. So that's the point that attracts me. It's not the looks, it's nothing else. It's always the sincerity. So that carried me a long way through the relationship. That he is a solid person. He's a sincere, solid person that helped me overcome a lot of my disappointments for a very, very long time. So it depends upon how you look at it. And because, in earlier days, in India, especially in arranged marriage, you were not even asked, whether if you want to marry this girl. You just have to marry this girl or this boy. But when we knew that we did not have options, right? We did not create any fantasy. Right, we started off with a lot of skepticism that I don't know how he'll be, how she'll be, and what will happen, and what will. So that way, you're more open to accept the person for who he or she can be, right? So that carries you for a very long period of time because there's a hope also. So you are also in an adjusting mode that I can, both of us have to adjust, so we can do that. So that is how the relationships used to last longer. And now with the younger generation, patience is very less. Plus, I believe that many of them already have one foot out of the relationship, believing that if it doesn't work out, there's always an option out. And so, when you already have one foot out, the effort that you put in is not enough. That is required. And Raju, it is said that for a couple to know each other properly, good, bad, everything, and to finally settle down, it takes minimum 7 years. And that's a long period considering that most marriages are breaking today in the period of 6 months to 3 years after marriage.
That's real for you in India. That's what you're saying.
That's the statistics. Most marriages are between 6 months after marriage or 2-3 years. And up to 3 years.
These people are within their 20s, 30s sort of age group?
So they get married around in the late 20s or early 30s. By the time they are
Mm.
40s or 35 or 40, they are already on their way out. So if you are not
Mm.
even giving that full 7 years to know each other, there's no possibility, because anyway, we don't even like to share the room with our own sisters, own our
Right.
brother. Parents walking into the room without knocking, we are so impatient. That's the world that
Mhm.
we live in today. So to
That's
give
right.
that chance to a total stranger, or even if it's a love marriage, it's still a stranger because you've not adjusted that way with him or her. That takes a lot of time.
For sure. That raises a question for me, Satna, for you, because in the case of in Indian versus maybe somewhere else, I think it's to me, and I've known from my friends and their kids getting divorced and so on very early. I think within the first year or two, as you were saying, it's sort of sad to see. But then, given that there's so much openness in today's environment, these are love marriages, these are not arranged marriages. Why is this so prevalent? Because the society hasn't changed that much in India, right? Why is that?
It has. See, I'll tell you one simple change, which is like biggest reason for a lot of things, is that we used to have bigger families. If not a joint family, at least an extended family. Okay. So
Yep.
when you have a lot of people in a family, you automatically learn adjustment, sacrificing, compromising. These are the essential aspects of any relationships where you're sharing the space with anyone. It cannot be according to just one person, right? Because now we are absolutely become nuclear, and each one has their own room, each one has their own laptop, each one may have their own TV, they have their own ACs, they have their attached bathrooms. So you don't even
Yeah.
need to share your bathroom with anyone. That's where I'm growing. Now I
Mm.
am impatient about everything. I'm intolerant about everything that's happening around me. I cannot tolerate anyone to enter my room, my space,
Hmm.
or moving something on my desk and I get angry. I get because that's what I'm used to. I've grown up believing that this is how it should be and this is how it will be all my life.
Mm.
Right? There's no place for another person. The other people who we have are our parents who are adjusting everything for us. The parents don't want to disturb their children these days. That's the typical thing which I heard here. So they'll walk on eggshells around their children, and so making the children believe that their comfort, their space is the primary important thing. So when
So
they
actually,
are
then I go back to arranged marriages. I think arranged marriages had an important element to that was very positive, which is that the economic and some other compatibility, not the genuine chemistry compatibility, but just the economic compatibility was
yes,
taken care of. Because otherwise, in the dating world today, it takes you many months, years to figure out, where the person really is and who they are. We don't even know where they're from. And in the courtship, you get engaged and married. We don't know
and
the intricacies of how they live and what their economic situation is,
I
because
tell you
that's less
something
important
very
to most.
interesting. The young girls and boys, when they meet, okay, especially when they're in a relationship, they'll talk about everything, my freedom, my space, whether to live with the in-laws or not and all.
Right.
But they will not talk, they will not discuss. The boy will not ask the girl, will you cook? Because he still
Mm.
believes that, okay, this comes with the role, she's going to cook. But she's not going to. Because that's what has been told to her while growing up, that you do not do this menial work.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's how the girls are told, especially in India, that we are not giving you all the education so that you end up doing this menial work, right? So that's how she's been grown up. But the guy has got no clue about this in most of the marriages, to ask her. The guys want the best looking girls. They get attracted to the modern girls who go out dancing with them and drink with them and everything. Not even for a second they think that can she adjust in my house. Because and when this girl comes to the family, he expects her to change everything. He
Yeah.
just expects कि ये तो होता ही है. This is how it is and this should be. He doesn't even bother to ask that, what do you think about marriage? Do you think you can live with my mother? That my mother expects this. But the mother has never even told the boy anything. The mother might have given a lot of freedom to her own daughter also. So anyway, there's no chance of this young generation knowing what my mother is actually going to react to this new girl who's come. We don't even think about it when they are in the love relationship. They don't even think about these things. That what is the practical marriage is going to be like. They
Yes.
both
Very
live in this.
true from this.
Yeah, the girls are growing up with a very clear thinking that I will grow up, I'll earn a lot of money, and I'll have lots of maids. That's a clear thinking she had. The guy has no clue about that this is how she's going to be. She's not going to be getting up before 9 or 10 in the morning, and that's how she is going to be. He has no clue about that. So practically we are living in the fantasy world also. And like I keep on mentioning that when they're about to get married, they'll talk about the wedding dresses, the events, and the guests and this and that, but no one talks about it, what actually marriage is. So we talk about wedding, we don't talk about a marriage, how the marriage is going to
So
be.
true. So true. Let's leave the viewers and listeners with some takeaways. Maybe they got their own, but if we were to summarize the number one guy, and maybe you can please add something. Now, for me, the most important thing always comes down to what is it that you believe you're bringing to the relationship, and what are you going to do about it? Because I felt like my own learning, that's what it was, that I wasn't taught anything by my mother or father ostensibly, because that wasn't the culture of, sit somebody down and saying, here's how you deal with, intimacy and behavior and so on and so forth. So I think that to me is the first one that I go, wow, we were matching horoscopes and, everything looked compatible, X 32 out of 36 or some number, or 25 out of 36 was a good number. I mean, we don't know what these things are, but whatever happened. So you just, as you say, it's a crapshoot. You think you're going to have a beautiful, wonderful relationship in Bollywood, Hollywood style, and none of that actually happens. So it starts with you again.
I feel if I have to leave word here, I would say that do think about the premarital counseling, whether it's a love marriage or an arranged marriage. Because trust me, even if you are in a love marriage, you have not even talked 5% of what is going to be really the important things in your marriage. You haven't talked about it. Trust me on this. There are so many awkward topics which might have come to your mind, but you would have thought that how to talk about this, whether it's an arranged marriage or it's a relationship. And that's why you need premarital counseling. Everyone needs premarital counseling to see even that, like when I start off with premarital counseling, I give them a lot of questionnaires for introspection. I don't give them a questionnaire to what do you want to ask to your partner. I give them their own questions. What is it that you can never compromise? What are the things which you are willing to compromise for the right kind of a person? What is it your expectation of your partner is? What is the expectation of marriage? Why are you getting married? What do you want from marriage? So all of these introspection questions, when I give them, they don't return for a very long time because they find it very difficult to answer. But this is what decides whether you are even ready for the marriage and the whatever comes with it.
Well, then I'd
A
say the
lot of
main takeaway is premarital counseling.
I would say yes, absolutely. Premarital counseling is
That's great.
essential at any stage of your relationship, whether you're getting married after 10 years of relationship, even then I would suggest, because I've seen couple being together for 8 years and 10 years and separating within 6 months of marriage. Because marriage is totally different from a relationship. Even if you have experienced live in, it is still different. And like we said, like the introspection question, I said, it's not about knowing the other person. You might be knowing the other person. Do you know yourself well enough? That so yes.
Yeah.
Don't get married or into a commitment unless you really know what you want in a marriage.
So, to that, just to counter, because whether it's America or anywhere else in the world, this is fundamental, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, premarital counseling, it's not that uncommon in the US, but maybe it is in India, I'm not sure. But even after you're deciding, and what I often see as an answer to that is, hey, she and I have already talked about this quite a bit. What's the counter to that? I've already done premarital, I know here's what I like, here's what she says she likes, and, we're going to go ahead. Do I need premarital counsel even then?
Yeah, you still need
Because
because you
that's
haven't talked about who's going to clean the toilet.
maybe they have. I don't know.
It's just one of the questions. And I have many
Yes.
of them, which you have not. I know it. That which you have not. And then do you know your trigger points? What makes you angry? What makes you lose patience? And all of those questions you have
Mm-hmm.
not thought. You only thought about those, what do I like about him? And is he the right person? And all of these things. And for the guys, especially, for the both of them, in fact, how much interference of my parents and his parents or her parents are we going to tolerate? Or are we going to accept? Do we have a common rule
Right.
for those? Those things no one talks about. Even if they say that we have talked, I know they haven't talked about these things. And there are many such things which actually matter when you get married.
All right. So I guess in summary, there's only one takeaway. Get some premarital counseling.
Yes,
I
get a
suppose you do it together, right?
No, not essentially. Even if you're thinking about marriage and you do not have a partner yet, it's good to get started with understanding what do you want in
Okay.
life, anything. So
Awesome.
premarital counseling, yes. And initial days there is going to be adjustment issues. So please consider counseling at that point before things get out of hand.
Awesome. Well, don't live in fantasy land, my friends. Go, get some help regardless, because you're making a long-term commitment to somebody and they're making it to you. So it's about both of you. And I think that kind of stuff does make for happier marriages. It's not happy marriages necessarily. All right. Did we leave out anything today? And maybe if there are, I'm sure we left things out. Please write to us. Please let us know. Subscribe to this podcast and what it is that, that's maybe a challenge for you, maybe, or a topic that you want to bring up, whether you're getting married or.
One thing I would like to actually tell them, just because we are sitting here and talking about this doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything. So if you do disagree with something, do let us know. We would really like to know different views on, what we are talking about.
Sounds great. Well, until next time, on another fun subject that we heard from one of our listeners to pick up, we'll let you know what that is. Until then, saying goodbye from the Relationships Marriage Podcast. If something in today's conversation stayed with you, well, sit with it. That discomfort is telling you something worth listening to.
Before thinking of who needs to hear this and who needs to change, try to introspect. We read every comment and message and reply them personally. Tell us what come up for you.
And if someone in your life actually does need to hear this, send it to them. That might be the most important thing you do today.
Subscribe so that you never miss a conversation.
See you in the next episode.